talk about the amount you've read and how important that has been in guiding you as a public leader and in your private life, all of your reading. All of your reading and the amount you've read and how it's guided you in both your public and private life.
I think seriously, reading is very important. I managed to learn how to speak English, not from the school, not from learning grammar. I read. I read a lot of books when I was young, and when I write something, write a sentence or speak about something, if it is wrong, it sounds wrong, it doesn't seem right, because I find that it is not like what I have read before. So I think if you want to learn English, the better way is not to learn horrible English grammar, but to read and read and read. And I believe that anything you do repeatedly, you become skillful. So reading gave me not only knowledge about all kinds of things, especially as you face the PCs nowadays, they ask me odd questions. Fortunately, I have read about the things that they ask about, so I could answer. So you get knowledge from reading. Secondly, of course, you improve your ability to communicate in whatever language that you read your books in.
All right, that's our soundbite to promote next year's festival. But yes, so Tun, during your tenure, you believed in certain restrictions to expressions with the aim to protect society from itself. We're in 2015 now. A lot of what is happening here today is because of certain freedoms, so the internet and all of that. Do you think that society in 2015 is mature enough for those dangerous ideas?
I don't think we'll ever be mature enough. In any case, there is nothing absolute about the things that you do or you are free to do. There must be a limit to things, otherwise society will just not function. Why do we have laws? We have laws governing everything that we do. We have laws because it restricts. You can do this much and not beyond that. You cannot do this thing, you cannot do that thing. So we live in a restricted society, not a free society. And for example, this freedom of speech, people say, well, why can't Charlie Hebdo say nasty things about the prophets of Islam? I mean, isn't it part of freedom of speech? Now, if I go up to a person and pardon my saying, so I curse his mother for no reason, I think he says, but you are saying nasty things about my mother. He said, that's my freedom. Why are you objecting? It's my free speech. So that you cannot do. You have to have some limit. If you go beyond a certain limit, then the free speech, which is going to be for the betterment of society, becomes something that will cause a lot of problems, even violence and revolutions and things. So I believe that while you can be free, but you must observe certain limits to your freedom.
So I suppose my question is that, have you loosened your opinion on what those limits might be?
A little bit. But I think taking off your clothing on Mount Kinabalu is not what you should do. Because the mountain got, the mountain got so excited. And you see what happened after that.
One last question before I open it to the floor. Tun, I wanted your opinion on, when you were Prime Minister, when the internet was kind of coming into its own. And you had to make a very important decision, which was when you set up MDC and you went, we're not going to censor the internet. At one point, you kind of went, oh, I wished I had censored the internet. But now your blog's been blocked a couple of times. Just 10 days ago, you were censored on stage in PWTC. Do you still hold on to that belief, or do you think that should be a venue that is free?
As I said, I'm not absolutely free. I can say something, there are things that I cannot say. But I believe that if you're living in a society where certain things are not are objectionable, you have to observe it. If you go to Sweden, if you want to take off your clothes, what is there? They are used to it, but on Mount Kinabalu, no. So other places, other values, so we have to respect. And see, we have to respect other people's ideas and their value system. If you don't, then there will be anarchy.
All right, folks. We're going to open it up to the floor now. I don't want to hog the mic. Let me tell you how this works. We're going to open up the floor, stand up, introduce yourself, tell us where you're from, ask your questions. I don't want speeches. Make your question as succinct as possible, and then Tun can answer you, and we can move on to the next person. There will be people with roving mics. I will point to who I would like to ask a question, because it's good to be me. All right. Feel free, folks. We've got one right at the back. That's the first hand that went up, and then we've got Ivy in the front row here.
Good evening, Tun. Thank you so much for your speech. My name is Divya Kanagasingam, and I'm a Malaysian citizen. You have been quite critical of the handling of 1MBD over the past couple of weeks. However, it is the loss of independence of government agencies and the judiciary under your tenure that has contributed to the Rakyat's inability to hold our present leaders accountable. Do you believe that our nation's problems are systemic, or do we simply just need a change in leadership?
You know, I always get this accusation that I restricted the judges. I told them what judgment they should make in every case. But believe me, it's not true. I don't talk to the judges except for the Lord President, and that is because he comes to see me to inform me about the promotions, about the appointments, etc. Normally, I don't interfere. But of course, the press says I restrict the judges, I control them and all that, and that becomes a universal belief that everybody repeat them without actually examining the truth or otherwise of what they claim. Actually, it is not true at all, but nothing I say will convince people that I don't direct the judges. I don't. Actually, I don't. I don't talk to them. I never even invite them to my house. I invite the Lord President, yes, because he was chief. But other prime ministers do invite judges to their functions. I don't. Even for Raya, for Puasa, I don't. But nevertheless, this label has been given to me, and I just cannot get rid of this label. For example, in the case of Saleh Abbas, the reason why this tribunal was set up to listen about his case was because the Agong at that time, Sultan of Johor, never liked Saleh Abbas for reasons which I don't care to explain. So Saleh Abbas wrote to him a letter complaining about the noise that was coming from his house near Saleh Abbas' house because they were renovating his house. Now that was a wrong thing for Saleh Abbas to do. When you are a senior person, you could go and see the Agong and tell him, look, you are disturbing me or whatever. But Saleh Abbas wrote the letter and copied it to every sultan. Now, the Sultan of Johor, who was Agong, was very annoyed. He said, this is wrong, a wrong thing to do. And he asked me to dismiss Saleh Abbas. I went and told the cabinet about the request by the Agong, and they said that you cannot dismiss. You can appoint, the Agong can appoint and approve, but they cannot dismiss unless, of course, there is a tribunal. And so I told the Agong, and he said, okay, we'll set up a tribunal. So the tribunal was set up. Now I have problem with the AG at that time. He did not want to mention the Agong's name in the tribunal. So he says that it was me. It was I who wanted Saleh Abbas to be dismissed. And he dig up somewhere where Saleh Abbas made speeches which I didn't know about. But the speeches apparently was against me. And he used those speeches and other things to show the tribunal that Saleh Abbas was against the Prime Minister, and it was the tribunal which decided that he should be dismissed. Firstly, it is not me who complained, it was the Agong who complains, but before the tribunal, I was made to be the principal complainer against Saleh Abbas. And of course, this is reported all over the world. I have explained this over and over again. I did not interfere. I'm prepared to go as a Muslim, you know, we swear with the Quran and all that. I'm prepared to do that because I didn't do. I didn't ask anybody to dismiss Saleh Abbas. But I have got that reputation. I know, I accept it. Until I die, this is the label that will be given to me. So if people think that I do this wrong thing, yes, all right. There's no way I can clear myself.
Ivy Josiah, which is over here, and then we've got two people there.
Thank you, Tun.
Rub their hands.
How do I understand? Tun, maybe I'll ask, my name is Ivy Josiah. Maybe I'll ask the question differently. So the mismanagement of finances, especially with 1MDB, has reached a nauseating level. You know, there's allegedly, and I've used the word allegedly, of course, cronyism, corruption, and so on. So instead of asking how you could have contributed, you and your cabinet, over 22 years, what did you do during the 22 years that prevented this? Are you saying that during the time when you were Prime Minister, this didn't take place? So during your time, what were you doing differently that's happening, because you were also Minister of Finance at that time, right? So perhaps, I'm turning the question differently. Thank you.
Thank you. What did I do? It's a long time ago. And as a Malay, you know, they forget. But let me tell you, there is corruption in any society. You cannot claim that this society is absolutely free from corruption. But you have to do something about it. During my time, the most important thing that I could do was not to be corrupt myself. Lots of people tried to dig up after I stepped down to find out how corrupt I was, and they couldn't find any case against me. So that is the most important thing to do, because corruption can be divided into two stages. The first stage is when society rejects corruption and thinks that it is a crime. At that stage, there will be corruption, but people will hide the corruption. They accept the money beneath the desk, below the table. But in some societies, corruption is accepted as part of normal transaction. It has come above the table. You want to do something, this is what you have to pay. Fortunately for us, we have not come to that stage. That stage, you will come to that stage when you find that from the top to the bottom, everybody is corrupt. When you see the top man is corrupt, then what's to prevent you from being corrupt as well? So the important thing is the top man must not be corrupt. Of course, people still say, oh, I must be corrupt. I have the authority, so it must be true. If I am in his place, I would be corrupt. So he is there, sure, he's corrupt. So as a leader, nothing you do will convince people that you are not corrupt. But for me, I don't have a need for huge sums of money because I decided that I'm not the pharaoh because I cannot build a pyramid and bring all this gold and silver with me. So I thought it's not worthwhile. So I was quite content with what I get. You know, we know how much they pay the Prime Minister of this country. When I first became Prime Minister, it was 8,000 ringgit. That was my pay. And I gave back 10% to show the country that we have to sacrifice. But of course, the civil servant says not one cent would they contribute. But that's all right, that's something else. But for me, even $8,000 was a lot of money. As a medical practitioner, I was making only 2,000 ringgit. Now I'm getting 4 times that. That's a lot of money to me. Eventually, they paid me $20,000. It's not a lot of money by comparison to what executives in companies get nowadays. I know they get as much as 180,000 a month, more than 2 million a year. But for me, 20,000 was more than enough. I didn't have to spend the money at all. The government gives me everything. Housing, electricity, water, transportation, cars, travel by plane, I don't have to pay. What's the money I receive for? It's not something that I depend upon. And I've been brought up as a kedekut, a stingy person. I don't even spend money on myself. I don't spend government money. You see, so to me, what the Prime Minister is paid is more than enough. I don't have to be corrupt. But the pleasure you get is to see what you set out to do is accomplished. That gives pleasure, not the money. That's for me. Other people maybe would think about the monetary return, but I don't. But you have to accept that corruption exists everywhere. The most important thing is to keep corruption level under the table. Let people know that it is a crime, you don't do it. And above all, leaders must never be corrupt. You are paid enough, you can have a good life, so you don't have to have a lavish way of life.
Assalamualaikum, Tun. My name is Azira Aziz from Ampang. So I have 2 questions actually. I hope you, Umar, you don't mind. Okay,
one question at a time.
Okay.
I forget.
Okay. Okay, this is regarding, as a youth, I would like to ask you this question. In regards to the administration of this country, if you have the ability to influence or change things, in regards, I'm strictly policies, I'm not going to touch anything political, but in regards to policies pertaining to this nation, what will you change and what will you advise the youth to actually contribute and influence in the changing of policies? Yeah, that's it.
Well, I would think that if the youth focus on their own education, to get as much knowledge, as much qualification as possible, that is what youth should be doing. Of course, youth always have idealistic. They want things to be perfect. And sometimes we find that in order to achieve perfection, they become very interested in politics and neglect their studies. Now, when you are in the university, even if your parents pay for the fees, the public still pays to maintain the university. You owe the public a debt in the sense that they are paying you to get educated. They are not paying you to demonstrate and spend your time making well, a nuisance of yourself, for example. So I would say that you wait a little bit. It's not long. A few years later, you will graduate. Then you will be depending on your own money. At that time, if you really get upset over the current politics, then spend your money and spend your time to change things. But when you are dependent upon others, you are getting an education because others are helping you. Be grateful for that. Be thankful to the people who enable you to have an education and focus on getting a good education.
One over here. Hold on, one at a time. One over here, one over there, then one over there, and then one over there.
Tun, I'm from the British Council. We are very proud to be a partner and sponsor of Kuala Lumpur. My question follows on about education. A national education system teaching in the medium of English. Is this a dangerous idea?
You're lucky I'm not the Prime Minister. I would have arrested you for saying that. You know, getting an education is not about learning a language alone. Yes, you have to master the language, but it is about getting knowledge. And we have to accept the fact that knowledge comes to us sometimes in our own language, but sometimes in other people's language. I tried to argue this thing with a lot of people. I told them that, you know, when the Arabs became Muslim, they were uneducated. They were the ignorant Arabs. But their religion tells them to read. What was there to read at that time? There's nothing to read about religion. So they read about the Greeks, the works of the Greek philosophers, the Greek mathematicians, the Indian mathematicians, etc. To do that, could they read in Arabic? Because it's not coming to them in Arabic. It's coming to them in the Greek language, in the Indian language, in the Chinese language. So they had to learn that language in order to acquire the knowledge. Today, unfortunately, English is the language of knowledge. I regret it very much, but you know, I thought that Malay should be, but unfortunately it is not. So I think that while we must master our national language, but for the sake of knowledge, you must use English. Why science and math? Geography, history, these things don't change very much. Of course, sometimes they change the dates and all that. And of course, they write, different people write different versions of history. But the facts of history, the facts of geography do not change very much. But science is different. Every day, almost every hour, somebody somewhere is doing research and discovering new laws, scientific laws, new materials, new all kinds of new things. That is why today we have this telephone, funny telephone, where we can talk to somebody in New York. These things come to us all the time. And it doesn't come to us in Malay, it comes to us in English. That is why the study of English and mathematics should be in English, because Malay is not able to give to you the knowledge that is needed in this modern day. Without knowledge about science, mathematics today, you cannot make any progress. I am as patriotic, as nationalist as anybody else. I wrote about the Malay language in 1947 in the Sunday Times in Singapore. I told people that, you know, this is not the language of 5 million Malays. It's the language of 90 million Indonesian. But that was at that time. I had to revise. I had to accept that English is still necessary. But I wouldn't agree with the Sultan of Johor, who wants to bring back the English schools. It's good, it's great, but I think we should have a national school where science and math are taught in English. But one other thing that I find out, which is very disturbing, is that the ministers who advocate learning everything in Malay send their children to English schools.
The lady in the spectacles over there, she's had her hand up for quite a while.
Very good afternoon, Tun. Now, I would like to,
Sorry,
I know you,
just your name and where you're from.
I'm from Kota Kinabalu. I felt the shake when the earthquake. And in fact, for a long time, we have been feeling the tremor in Sabah. Tun, you said you have been accused of so many things, and here's another. My father was the first member of parliament in Keningau. You probably remembered him, maybe you don't. Datu Arif Saleh. He was one of those people who actually was responsible in converting a lot of the ethnic people to Muslims. Now, you know, in Sabah, there's a huge outcry, and we, were asking for the RCI for the legalizing of the illegal immigrants. I would like to hear from the horse's mouth, because you were accused of being a part of legalizing a lot of illegal immigrants so that you can dilute the voters, the ethnic voters, and have more Malays there who would be easily more controlled by the UMNOs and Barisan Nasional, so that Sabah will never again be in the hands of non-Muslim parties. And I would like to hear what you have to say. I know you have said that, these people have the rights to be legalized because they have been there for a long time. Tun, I've lived there, and a lot of our ethnic people have lived there. And we know a lot of them don't deserve it to be legalized just because that they can become voters. Now, I admire you, but here's the policies that we do not approve of, and we think it was very dirty. And like what the nudists did, we wish that there was something the ethnic people could do to surrogate or to penalize those people who disrespect the Sabahans. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
It's forcing a lot of self-reflection, Tun.
This country became independent in 1957, actually. That is the peninsula. Before that, we were under British rule. The British, they always create problems for other people. When they leave this problem to us. During the time when the British were here, they brought in people from China, from India, because they need the services of these people. These people came here not with the intention of becoming Malaysians. They want to come here, make some money, and then go back. But they found life comfortable here, and they stayed on. And when we became independent, we have 40% of the population were Chinese, Indians, and others. What do? Do we send them back? Do we deny them citizenship? As you know, we accepted them. Some of these people cannot speak a word of Malay, yet we accepted them as citizens. And Tunku Abdurrahman gave 1 million citizenship to people who are not qualified without having to go through any tests at all. That's how we treated people who come to live in this country. We're not like the Burmese. You know what the Burmese do? People who have been living there for 800 years are being expelled. They are said to be non-Burmese. Now they have to die at sea. So do you want to treat people in Sabah like that? These people who were given citizenship, I admit during my time, they were given citizenship because they have been living there more than 30 years. with their children. Their children couldn't go to national school because they were not nationals. It's not right. They've been living there. They speak Malay. Yeah, they may be Sulu, so whatever. You know, currently the governor of Sabah is a Sulu. You know, he's one of those pirates. But it's okay. You are now a Malaysian. We accept you. I mean, the way to treat people who settle down over time, so much so that they blended with the local scene, is to accept them. We accepted the Chinese, the Indians, the Pakistanis, the Arabs, you know, all these sites are all Arabs, you know. That's why they are called sites, which means Mr., by the way. Nothing very much. I was called Said Mahathir when I go to Yemen. Said Hamid was not called Said Hamid. I was Said, he was not Said. You see, because it's just Mr. Mahathir. So we accepted all of them. We didn't tell them to go out. We didn't behave like Myanmar. So in Sabah, the treatment was the same. If you are a recent immigrant, yes, those people we should not give. But if you have been living there for years and years and speak the Malay language, and of course some of them are Muslims, some of them are Christians, we accepted them. We accepted people from Indonesia who were living there. Many people in Sabah are not originally the Bumiputra of Sabah. We want to be fair to them. Was what I did wrong? I can't imagine I am wrong because Tunku Abdul Rahman did it before me. So I think we should accept people who have come to live in this country over a certain number of years. Currently, if you want to be a citizen, you must live in this country for 10 of the last 12 years. Then you are eligible, provided, of course, you pass the Malay test and all that. Other people, this is a multiracial country. You know, it is truly multiracial. It's not one race dominating everything with a small number of foreigners. No, this is truly multiracial, and they retain their culture, their language, their ethnicity and all that. This is truly multiracial. So what is so wrong that the Sabahan accused me of legalizing them? I admit, I legalized them because I think they deserve to be Sabahan.
We have time for one more question. Actually, we've got people here who've been waiting for a long time. Dr. Gui.
Thank you. Good evening, Dr. Mahathir. I'm Gui from Singapore. I'd like to know, and I'm sure some of my countrymen who are here today would like to know too, what you consider dangerous in post-Lee Kuan Yew Singapore.
You are in danger of becoming democratic.